Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Harry, I'm so honored to have you today, and we've been through this journey for many years. I met you about 15 years ago, and we have kept in touch through the entire time. I've seen you go through different changes too, professionally and personally, in a good way, and now you're at this peak in your career as you're a very young 60-something-year-old. Don't even look a day over 50.
66.
Now, for everyone in our audience, he's a salt of the earth. Not only is he a world-renowned exercise physiologist, he's also a master educator, but he's also himself an elite-level Masters Worlds runner, and recently placed 10th in the world at Worlds for the 60-year-old, 60 plus?
65
plus.
69 bracket.
Excellent. And he's still crushing it. It's crazy. He's number 10 in the world, which is amazing. And he's a soon-to-be published author, which I'm really excited about to get your book. You have consulted for Olympic teams. You've had leadership roles at Tufts, NYU. Now you're basically leading the exercise physiology division at Princeton Longevity Center, which is in New York and Princeton, I think.
We have several clinics around New Jersey, New York, Washington, and Shelton, Connecticut.
You were also on Good Morning America at one point, featured in the New York Times. You've had a lot of amazing, groundbreaking work in performance testing, which has positively impacted a lot of track and field athletes in particular and clinicians around the globe. And I'm really excited to be diving into testing here in specifics and in language that our audience, who are runners and lifelong athletes over 40, who want to continue optimizing their performance, people like you and me, we're in the same category, where I still want to try to crush it. You obviously are crushing it. So I look to you as an example and as inspiration. So thank you. Cool. So let's talk about exercise phys, how you got into the career, because this is going back, way back, when testing was not as complicated or as detailed as it was today, but has evolved a lot, obviously. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Before I answer that question, it was in this room exactly 5.5 years ago, I came in for a treatment with you. And remember, 5.5 years ago, it was 3 weeks before Boston, getting ready for Run Boston, and I was just not feeling good. And you said, let's work on your upper back. It could be tight, and you did work on it, but I knew something was wrong because you were working on it and you were getting a little frustrated because you couldn't find what's going on. So I decided to go to the doctor the next day, and it turned out to be that I had several blockages. And that's when my world changed. My attitude in terms of running and my friendship with you and Next Level Physio and everything, all people around me, my loved ones. And I ended up in the hospital, ended up with 4 stents. And I thought my world changed there. And that's one of the reasons I decided to get this book out, 1. And 2 is the way I started is in my early days when I was a teenager, I was a tennis player, nationally ranked tennis player in Puerto Rico. And one day they called me in. It was really getting ready for the Central American Games in Cuba. And so I had to go through some testing. So the guy that did my testing, Walter Fronteras, who's now the chief person in Vanderbilt, he was the one performing the VO₂ testing. There was not such thing as lactate at that time, but it was mostly performance testing and other body assessments. And I was intrigued the way he was doing this. And I was just a young guy, and I was in college, but I didn't know what I was going to do in college. I actually wanted to be in medicine, so I was in biology and ended up with a biology degree, but my goal was to be like Dr. Walter Fronteras. I love that, sports science stuff. And he opened the doors for me. He said, you could come in and do an internship here. Instead of doing an internship in high school with some teams, you could do it here. And it was at the Olympic Training Center in Puerto Rico. And it was only like 30 minutes away from campus. And I said, I'll do it. And that's what got me hooked. And ever since, I just love specifically running, but I love the science of running. And I do other sports, but my main focus is running. That's how I started. And I didn't make the team, but I was a substitute. We ended up with a silver medal as a team, and so I've been very blessed.
Absolutely. Let's go into like performance metrics for athletes, and I first want to talk about maybe the college or high-performing professional runner, but then I also want to start talking about our older athletes, guys and gals who are over 30, over 40, who again like want to continue crushing it as runners or even a fitness. How has testing changed as far as what you do or what you do for athletes?
Yeah. Well, it has changed throughout the years. Now, besides VO2 testing, we do other metrics like lactate threshold. We do gait analysis, which is a big thing now. And there's several systems that we could talk about. 2D, 3D system, what's the difference, what's more convenient, and so on. And we have experience with that, with the 2 and 3D. And now with all of the smartwatches, they have other metrics, cadence, tibia deviation, vertical displacement or oscillation, you name it. They have hip drops, how long your ankle is in pronation. And so there's a lot, but specifically, the purpose of the book really is to simplify things, and especially for the older master runners. My teammates, they're always asking, my vertical displacement's high. I go, what's the range where you need to be? Oh, I don't know.
How do you know it's high then?
Yeah, so that started, you know what, let me start organizing these ideas and work something here. And it's been several years that I've been working on it, but I finally got my act together. I have now the time, and so I'm started to write and incorporate my ideas in like segments, because that's the way I think. And then I found a good editor, and he and she, or both of them, are helping me organize these ideas. And now I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's coming soon.
For sure. Now, if we go back into testing for the typical professional athlete or even college athlete, are there certain numbers they should be looking for when looking at VO2 max, looking at lactate threshold, that sort of thing, that will help to let them know that they're on the right track to getting to where they need to be?
To be honest with you, everything is individualized. You could have a VO2, for example, of 60, but if it's mental, and if you don't have the mental fortitude to run at that level, 60 VO2, you're not gonna, that's why I don't put pressure on these numbers. I just look at the athlete individually, and then from there, I say, okay, if you're VO2 60, but you want to be a marathoner, that's okay. You should focus a little bit more in middle distance. Look at body type. I look at bone structure. You could be a short guy, but if your bone structure is large, you should stick to track. But also muscle fibers, that we haven't even touched that yet. But so these numbers are good to know, but it really depends on the goals of the athlete, what he or she is looking for. I know people with VO2s of 70, and they literally hate running. Oh, I just got the test done because my college coach wants to get this done. I'm a rugby player, and I see these guys with incredible VO2s. And again, if you look at it, because of the short bouts up and down, so that develops your VO2 number. But so to answer your question, it's individualized, really. It depends on your athlete. I know some of our friends with really low VO2s, but they're talented, and so they create this powerhouse, and then they go out for runs, and you go, wow, they're running pretty good for middle distances. So to answer that directly, it really depends on the athletes. But yes, we look at VO2, we look at lactate, which for me it's an important metric, so the lactate.
Why lactate is...
Well, lactate first is trainable. Obviously, you want to create that lactate as long as possible. If you look at a chart on the x-axis, you want it to go as far right as possible. You improve your cadence, you improve your running economy, you sustain these energies longer periods of time with the same pacing without going over the threshold. That's a great sign, and that's trainable. VO2 is somewhat trainable, but there is a genetic predisposition. If you got your parents that are really good VO2, I assure you will have that too.
That's awesome. So then it sounds like, from what I've read in longevity studies, it seems like VO2 max is very important to try to build even as you get older, because it does decrease as you get older, right? Oh, yes. So in doing that, there is that genetic sort of ceiling that you can hit, but we want to try to get to that ceiling as much as possible. So for people who are maybe over 30, over 40, Harry, would you say that what are the kinds of activities they should be doing to improve that VO2 max?
Well, not only it will improve that, but also it will preserve muscle.
Yes.
So you create good muscle. And I'm not talking Hulk Hogan type mileage. I'm talking nice lean muscle for performance. So yes, there's many methods of doing it. If we're talking specifically to a runner, so obviously some shorter bouts of higher volume of oxygen. 400 meters, 300, maybe ladders of 200, 300, 400. Some coaches will do 600s, and then you reverse it, 6, 5, 4, and you go the faster as you go on. I do introduce that to a lot of master runners, but I introduce it maybe a little after 5, 6 solid weeks of conditioning, because you don't want to get them injured. And that's something that you have to be careful. That's why you write the numbers down, where their heart rate is and how they're feeling. For master runners, I tend to use a lot the perceived exertion and obviously heart rate.
Of course.
But if you have a runner who has PVCs or premature ventricular contractions, the heart rate's not going to be accurate. That's when I use the perceived exertion. Hey, I want you like feeling it like a 7, 8, maybe 8, 9, week 5, week 6. So after they're done with that repeat, I'll get a heart rate, but tell me how you're feeling. Man, this was an 8. Okay, so that's the next 3 repeats. That's where I want you to feel. And then obviously I keep an eye on time. We could correlate that. But for me, that's why lactate runs are important. VO2 runs are important if you have a younger guy and he or she wants to just improve their 5K, 3K, maybe the mile, and so on. So yes, it has its position, but also, again, it's based on the actual individual.
Yeah, I like that because I think that, and you know how runners are, we're really fixated on the metrics and the numbers.
We're a little crazy.
We kind of have to be.
Obsessed and crazy.
You and I, we're not getting paid for this just because we're just a little obsessive. And there's something great about that, but it's funny because when we're so fixated on numbers, I sometimes think that we don't take account of the effort of your RPE involved, and that can maybe shift a lot of things in performance as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's the reason why I go through these numbers with them, but I really focus on 1 or 2 metrics at the beginning, because they're going to get overwhelmed. Then they're going to be focusing in their run with all the numbers, and then when they look, their cadence drops to 160 or maybe 170. And then like,
oh, you told me this information.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm feeling good. Yeah, but your cadence dropped. That you should feel good. You know what I mean? So I don't give them a whole lot of numbers. I just base everything also, and to answer the previous question, I base also everything on their pacing and their accurate 10K pace. So if a lot of the literature base their training in 5K, okay, everything based on 5K we'll deduct or we'll add more minutes or whatever. But I base it on 10K because 10K is a true lactate. It really shows where your lactate numbers are. So I base everything on my training logs, it's 10K, and then I move the numbers up or down, but I move them in percentage. I'll go, okay, instead of 100% is your 10K pace, so if this is a 1K repeats, then that's 105 of your 10K pace, which it correlates to a 5K pace. Right. Yeah. So I just meant the psychological game with them too. So they think, okay, it's 10K, but when you say 105, that means you're going to go 10, 15 seconds a little faster. Yeah. So that then drops into their 5K pace. I don't like to do 5K, 1K pace because first in the States here, it's all about mileage and not kilometers. So that's confusing, number one, especially if you have someone who doesn't understand the conversion. Yeah. So I base it on distance, the distance that they're used to. Oh, I'm running a 10K. So what's your split for K? I don't know. My split per mile is this. So I play around with that too.
So then you said that lactate is trainable. About how long does it take for, on average, for someone to start improving or see gains there?
Well, that's a 2-part question. One, based on your fitness, obviously. If you have a solid base, 7, 8 weeks of solid training, and zone 2s, a lot of zone 2s, then slowly we can introduce them to these lactate runs. And for me, it will take maybe after 3 solid weeks of threshold runs, you could start seeing them improving the cadence. You could see their respiratory rate improves. And also you could start seeing them like their running economy starts getting better because their recovery is getting a little better. And then how we know that? By heart rate, obviously. They start dipping in the 120s at 2 minutes, you're doing the right thing with them. So that's why I look at resting heart rates, and I also look at their running economy, how well they're handling that rep number 3, number 4. And because 1 and 2 is good. 1 tends to be slow and huffing and puffing, but then 2 opens up, what we call, they open up their hips, they feel good. Oh man, I hit the mark. So 3, I hit the mark, but then comes 4, 5, like, man, I gotta work, and that's the idea. You progressively, so that's a marker for me.
So then, and how many threshold workouts, I'm sure it depends on the person, what level they're at, for the average recreational runner who wants to PR their next 10K or maybe even half marathon, how many threshold workouts should they do per week?
Oh, well, I do 1, so I think 1 is enough because you're going to also have the other 2 quality workouts, your speed day, and then you're going to add your long run. So one per me per week is plenty. Sometimes I do a modification of a threshold. Instead of doing 3, for example, instead of doing 3 full minutes with 2 minutes recovery, I would do 1.5 minutes at the same pace. Not dropping, not increasing time. I decrease time, but I don't increase the power, the speed. Okay, keep it here. So they feel, man, this is good. I could handle 1.5 minutes. Yeah, because you did several sessions with 3 minutes at the same pace. Let's just drop you 1.5 minutes. For me, that's more psychological, and I tend to do that right before the race because they go in very confident. So those are little things that I do with them too.
I love that. 2 things I want to touch on over here, which I love that you talked about. Number 1 being running economy. And for we see a lot of runners of all kinds, Harry, as you already know. And the ones that come in who have either history of injuries, of the same kinds of injuries, knee, foot, plantar fasciitis, hip pain, Achilles, the first thing we do is we take them outside, just take a look, just a 2D, simple kind of thing. And it's just amazing for them to see themselves running and say, I never knew I ran that way. And then what I tell them is like, what if I told you that if you just increase your cadence just a little bit and widen your stance just a little bit, not only would your knee pain go away, but you would actually run faster without putting more effort, and that just blows their mind away. And it sounds like you would say the same.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Gait analysis is a great tool, and for me, 2D is quick, easy, and you could see it. 3D, it's more intentional, it's more detailed, but not many clinics could afford a 3D program, a software program. But the data in 2D is plenty, especially for your 40, 50-year-old runner. They want to know, how could you guys correct this issue that I'm having, and because I want to keep running. Now, if you have a young guy that really needs more accurate numbers, they need more vertical displacement, they need to know their tibia deviation, they need to know what type of shoe to wear on the track, what spike. So that you get in more details, but that has its purpose. But for your regular guy like us or any 40, 50-year-old, I think a 2D is good. It's really the clinician, how well they could handle the data and how they express this data to the patient or the client, in this case, the runner. But you're right. I think by just telling them, listen, your hip drop is coming because of this issue. Your glute med is weak. So they understand. Yeah. But, it's a hip drop because maybe it's because you're spending too much time on the ground. It's way too much. So that's the purpose of us talking to them in a simple way. Yeah. And then if they get into it, and then you could start slowly introducing, okay, now that we work on the hip drop, I also notice you have a hip rotation, so that the lat muscle's a little weak there. And back in the days, we knew that you had, our coaches used to put a 2x4 behind us and like this because we had this hip rotation, and they didn't realize it's because of the glute max is not helping you propel, so you cross your arms to push off, things like that. So it's funny that, and we see that issue in masters, obviously, because most of them are sitting all day and then they go out to run. Sitting is not good.
For any of our 40 plus runners who are listening to this particular episode, what I really wanted to cue you in on was getting your running form checked or running gait. 2D meaning two-dimensional, meaning if somebody gets their iPhone and films you, not only from the side and from the back and from the front, but making sure that they can sit down with you and talk to you in very plain terms about what deficits might be keeping you back from not only hitting your best performance, but also maybe it's a reason why you're having this chronic or constant issue with something that's been nagging you for years. And a lot of people wonder, well, I've been having this issue for so long, can I even get rid of it? Well, you might be surprised by just making some small tweaks into your running form, how invaluable that can be to making sure that your next runs after you get over those issues that you have physically will be an amazing generator of performance for you in the future.
Absolutely.
Let's talk now, the other thing you mentioned was...
And adding to that real quick, sorry, because you hit a really key point here. All of this is, you could solve this also by your pre-warm-up, right? During your warm-up, you could do these drills. You could do drills, A skip, B skip. You could do drills, and especially the 25-meter, just not sprinting all out, but sprinting with control. And so you could be aware of your arm movement. You could be aware of your hip snap or the ankle push-off. Just 25 meters. That way you don't have to worry about it so much when you're running. Because a lot of the guys also, they worry so much when they're running, oh, if I'm upright, if I'm going forward, if I'm pushing off, it's too much. But that's the pre-drills. You do these drills prior to your training. And again, that's another aspect of why getting a gait analysis at the clinic, because it's just going to help. It's just going to help.
And I'm a huge fan of the drills too. In fact, and to your point, Harry, where we don't want to overwhelm our clients. If I were to go over all the gait deviations that I saw and say, you got to train all these things, it would just drive them nuts. So it's always like, hey, you can try this one drill. All I want you to focus is on this week. A couple times a day, just do it in the comfort of your own home or at the office. I just want you to focus on this thing.
That's right.
And for them, it's just that patterning that has to occur because their brain has to also adapt to this new skill and new habit. Because who taught people how to run?
Yeah.
Nobody. That's the first question I ask. Who taught you how to run? They're like, well, I did. Well, that's your problem. So when we go over the drill stuff, it's actually to help them to understand, oh, this is how I should feel, so that it becomes more automatic when they go at a distance on.
You're right. Hip drop controls over 60% of the issues that we see in runners. Think about it. Yeah. It controls, obviously, a crossover. It controls the pelvic rotation, pelvic tilts, pelvic drops. The glute medialis, it's a very important muscle in running. That's why it's important, and I know here for a fact they do it here, that's one of the first group of muscle they train.
Yes.
And automatically you could see that progression 2-3 weeks or 2-3 sessions. They start improving that, and oh man, my core is getting stronger. Now I feel like I'm upright. Yeah. Gives them confidence.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, and the glute medius for our audience, it's a muscle on the side of your pelvis that's very deep to the other muscles that are covering it, but it's an important stability muscle in runners that often gets overlooked and it needs to be addressed. So thanks for bringing that up one, actually. Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about, and it was a relationship between VO2 max and mental fortitude. And I love that you mentioned that because I think that two things. Number one, I think people don't know how hard they can push themselves sometimes, so they underperform. And then other people, because they have such high fortitude, will overdo things because they think they can handle things and they end up broken. Either way, you have somebody who doesn't get to their best level because they're either underperforming because they don't want to feel that pain, or they overperform because they like that pain and they're just pushing the envelope too far. How do you reconcile that?
Sitting them down and tell them, if you want me to coach you, these are the speeds you need to do your training. Okay. During the race is different. The race you're gonna go not all out from the get-go, but these are the pacing that you need. Like the conversation we had with your client this morning. Yes. Oh, what should I do here? Say first few miles in your marathon, you're gonna just enjoy the first few miles, get into a rhythm. Then the beautiful thing of marathon is you're going to be there 2-3 hours running, right? So the first several miles, I see guys running too hard. Oh, this is comfy. The first few miles. Oh, this course is easy. First few miles. Yeah, Boston is easy. The first 3 miles, it's very easy. But it's all downhill. So by mile 6, your quads are shut. So slow down, break. the way of doing it is a racing plan. Okay, we coached you for 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, maybe 18 weeks. Now here's the day. Follow this plan. And trust the plan. That's it. And that's how you get these. If they trust their coach, they're going to perform well. Because I know coaches are not here to really harm you or they're here to help you. And not every coach has the same technique or same style. So that's another thing. You got to find which coach is good for you. Yeah. But in answering your question, the way it's just sitting them down and giving them a reality check. Like, okay, listen, based on your times, if you're doing 3-minute 800s and you could do 3 minutes for 8, 10 reps like that, it's a pretty good assurance that you're going to be around 3. I always add 5 minutes or take 5 minutes. You're going to be 255, maybe 3. That's the range if you trust your system. Yeah. So that's why I write everything down for them. And I said, listen, these are your times in practice. I think we could push you here in training. So that's just, you got to sit him down and give him a reality.
For I'm sure you've had this over the years, Harry, the athlete who pushes too hard, even though you said, hey, these are times you have to hit. How do you get him to how do you bring them down and say, listen, we're just going too hard here?
Yeah, well, you could see this happening more in practice, to be honest with you. In practice, they tend to go too fast. And a lot of us, and I'm including both of us, sometimes we do our long runs too fast. Sometimes we do our track workouts too fast. Or sometimes we cheat. We go a little too slow and I prefer you going a little slower than faster. Yeah. That's my opinion. Yeah. With these type of athletes is you got to base it all on data, honestly, especially with the type A athlete that he just goes all out in the race. Eventually that's going to catch up. They're going to get an injury. And then that's when you sit him down and say, listen, you don't have to use it as more of a teaching moment because over 80% of our time with athletes, we have to re-educate them. That's the bottom line. So one of the moments of a teaching moment, that would be it when they fail in that race. I go, the reasons we think you failed, and you don't have to make them feel bad, but say, listen, in your practice you were doing these times and then here you went over. You keep it the same. Trust, it's going to take you there. A good example, one of our buddies 2 weeks ago in Jacksonville, in practice, he was literally in front of us all the time. Wow. Like fast. And we're like, and I personally would think, man, I'm not going to mention his name, but I said, man, this guy, he's going way too fast. He was feeling so good. You don't have to race your practice, right? So I had an opportunity at dinner time right before the event, the night before. I said to him, listen, what pace are you going to go? He said, man, I'm feeling good. I'm just going to go this. And I remember my wife hit me in the because she knew I was going to say. I said, no, okay. But I was thinking, I feel bad because he's not going to, there's no way. Looking at the course, looking at the weather, looking at the way he was training, his expectation was almost 10.5 seconds faster per mile. Wow. And what happened? People that were behind him in practice, and our teammates that were in practice, they all passed him. Oh he ended up, I think, 8th or 9th. Oh, he could have been top 3. Oh, and he just halfway, the second time came up the hill, you could tell. His cadence broke, everything. So those are the teaching moments. So that's what I would do with that type of athlete. Just listen, you got to slow down to get better. You have to slow down.
That's amazing. As far as, and you talked about injuries here, and I want to get into that because obviously we see a lot of injuries. What are maybe the top 2 or 3 reasons why a lot of elite runners, or even older runners especially, get hurt? One of them might be that, like this guy just overdoing it. Are there other key things that you see, Harry?
Well, a lot of the injuries, honestly, it's a really good question, but it's a tricky question. A lot of the injuries we're seeing are preventable, to be honest. That's the first thing. But a lot of the injuries that we see from mostly muscular injury, not musculoskeletal, but the muscle injuries, I honestly I believe it's lack of a pre-warm-up program and also really bad nutrition.
I'm so glad those are my top 2 for what we see. First thing we do here, we sit them down, right? Tell me about, you track your macros. Well, I don't really track my macros. Like, well, how the hell do you know how much you're actually taking in, how much food you're getting in? And they're always feeling tired. They're never feeling recovered. They're always pushing really hard.
Yeah. And dehydrated.
Hydrated, exactly.
They confuse nutrition with hydration.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And they're not eating enough protein for sure, especially for recovery. I had a talk yesterday with Kathy Malouf, who's a registered dietitian, talking about like how we have to get the protein to our system as part of our system so that we can get ready for the next training cycle. But if we're not doing those things after we worked out, we're definitely going to risk, especially getting older, like we're not like we were in our 20s. So that's really important.
It is, and that's the reason why I'm saying it's a tricky question, because coaches will understand the physiological aspect of the run, but the nutritional side, that's why you need a team, a multiple disciplinary team in 100%. Your group. And even if you're an amateur runner, but a nutritionist, you need a PT person, you need a good coach, and have them communicate with each other. And I'm one that I know I've screwed up many times. Like I go after a track workout on a Tuesday, Wednesday, it's supposed to be easy, but I'll go easy. I'm working, so I forgot to drink my fluid. So I go in that easy run, I'm dehydrated, and then my heart rate the next day, it's way too high. So it's high, maybe it's just a little tired. Oh, I got practice Thursday, it's a tempo run. Boom, 2 miles into it, I crash. So that's why nutrition is important, especially the older we start getting. The muscle needs to be hydrated constantly. Don't ask me how many fluid ounces. I just know that I take plenty of water. That for me personally, my good sign is if from mile 1 on my heart rate is under control in the 130s. Going at the regular pace, I know I'm good. And then I feel you get a good sweat in, and I know I'm hydrated. And I love it because you finish good. And the next day, you could do your next run. So nutrition is a very important aspect and to avoid injuries.
Definitely. And I'm also glad you talked about the pre-warm-ups, because what I found when I went from 30 to 40 was if I didn't warm up, Harry, whether it was running or lifting or whatever triathlon related, I did not have a good workout. Something was a little tweaky afterwards. I felt stiff. I didn't feel like I could actually get into the groove. But once I learned the lesson, like late 40s, my entire performance had improved. And even training for this marathon, thankfully, for the last 5 months, I haven't had any injuries, knock on wood. Good. And it's because... You can crush it. Thank you. But to your point, I always warm up. And it's one of the big things that we teach at Fleet Feet, because we were part of them down in North Carolina, is you got to warm up. And it's a simple thing. It doesn't have to be that long, but you have to do the drills. You got to do a couple of things to get your body loose. And obviously people have individual things they have to work on as well. But you also have to make sure that your nutrition is sound and that you are doing the things to keep that foundation. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to perform at your best.
You perform, but they'll perform, but they're not going to be at their peak. And then that's why it's a waste of time. If you're doing a VO₂ test, it's a waste of time if you're doing lactate, if you're not going to use those numbers. And that's the reason why we got to simplify this as both clinicians and as coach, because we're blessed to be able to do both. So we bring the science into the training, and it's the way to go. You pay hundreds of dollars to get your lactate. And then, okay, these are the numbers. This is your LT1, this is your LT2. To avoid overtraining or undertraining, just stick here 6-7 weeks, we'll do it again. Okay, sure, I got it. And you write a beautiful report, covers everything beautiful, and then they go, and then you see them running, and I'm doing my threshold run. You're going 6-minute miles instead of 6:20s. That's a big difference.
Big difference, yeah.
That's what we could do.
So the data is only as good as you're going to follow it. At the same time, the data doesn't say everything about the performance ability of that individual, because there are other personal factors that can be involved in that.
Like we mentioned, absolutely everything. Stress, work, kids, everything. That's why I think that as an amateur runners, we have a lot of issues that we need to solve in one day before a run. While professional athletes, they have their issues, but they have majors, they have managers, they have coaches that will run their lives, and they get paid. I'm telling you, if we were lucky enough to be able to do that, we would have been, and I'm not trying to brag here, but age.
I know you could.
No, you too. We got good. We're age groupers. That's good. So,
awesome.
but that's the reality. I honestly think it's having a really good core of team members around you, including clinicians and coaches. And you will spend more money, you will have better value of what you're spending when you have that team. Because if your ultimate goal is to be a good runner, enjoy running, not only for competition, but for even lifestyle, and longevity. Yeah. These are the ways, and then scientifically it's been proven. You need a team of, like when you go to the doctor, you have your internist, you have your cardiologist, you have same thing. Running for me, I treat it not only as a lifestyle, but I also treat it as my to go for my mental health and I still love to compete.
Yes, of course. You're always an athlete. You're always a competitor. Yeah, it's funny. And that's, I think, the reason why a lot of our runners, a lot of our lifelong athletes who do fitness and whatnot, it's great for their mental health. It's how they get through their day. It's what makes them feel like a human being sometimes, because it's them getting into the focus and zone.
Absolutely.
And when we can give them that team approach of PT, trainer, coach, dietitian, physician, you make for the best possible person who can get the most out of their life if that's what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And when we can help them balance those factors out that might be holding them back from doing the things, it's another world for them. But we've seen so many success stories where there are a lot of guys and gals who've come to us where they never thought they'd be able to get back into running. We had one guy, ultra runner, named Scott. He had this chronic, persistent plantar fasciitis and Achilles issue. 2 years, a long time, ultra runner, 80, 100-mile races, wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. And finally, we took a look at a couple things, and one of them was his running gait, and he was definitely, something was there that needed to be fixed. Once we started tweaking that, he started feeling much better. And then we used our regenerative tools to get him to accelerate that healing process. And it's been 2 years, and he hasn't had any recurrence of that, which has been cool. And his life has changed, because the biggest thing for him too, and I want to get into this too, also, Harry, is that it was the first time he actually took strength training seriously.
Oh, really?
And it's one of the levers, and you and I both preach this to our clients. It's he thought he understood what strength training was, but once we took him through the program and we built him up, he was like, I've never felt this strong before as a runner, but also as a man. And these guys in the 40s, I was like, well, that's not that great. So he's been continuing on the program, but he has not had that recurrence of injury either. And for our audience, if you have not had the experience of having someone take you through a real good strength program, aggressive loading over time, it really would behoove you to get that done, because you might be surprised how well you're going to start running and how much less prone to injury you're going to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Strength training is the key. It's the key. It's the key for everything. It's in the type of strength training. The beautiful thing in clinics like yours, they could really specify what type of strength training. Functional strength. We don't need to be, you want some muscle, that's fine and all that, but it needs to be functional. Yeah, functional.
We're not looking for like hypertrophy. We're not looking for big muscles, no.
You just want to be able to push, pull, and lift.
Yes,
that's the key. Yeah. And once you do that, you're good. That's it. The strength training it's everything. Yeah. I stopped strength training when I finished my tennis career. I thought I was done. But now, in those days, I remember our coach never had us do a whole lot of strength training, because the theory behind it, this is in the 80s, early 80s, 78 to 80, and the early 80s, it was like, oh no, your biceps they're getting too big, the racket head and all the speed. And, okay. So they had to do like really light bands. I remember some bands, and in those days, they had these like dumbbells, but it was just all dumbbells and bands. Yeah. But now, if you look at the tennis tour, all of these top 10 players, not only they played multiple sports, but they all strength train. Yeah. And these guys are big now. I'm talking they look like bigger than wide receivers, and they're tennis players. Yeah. And that's why their careers are lasting longer, which is another point. Yeah. You strength train, that's assuring you that you're going to last longer in your event. Either it's a 5K all the way up to a marathon, especially a marathon.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about training for marathon if you're over 40. Someone coming in, it's the first time they have maybe they're a young runner, so to speak, haven't run before, but now they feel inspired to run their first marathon. And I'm saying this because it's my first one tomorrow, and I'm 50 now. But what is some advice that you will give, and how might you take them through let's say 5 months out, like build a program up until the race?
Well, if they have the ability or the opportunity to get a physio, a study to see your running form and so on, I would start there. Just get a baseline. And then from there, find a good coach who understands your body and also understands the running, that your goals as a runner. And then from there, then I would start them. First time walker runner, I would start them in a jog walk program, really comfortable. If they, like, again, I'm trying to just focus on your question, like if it's a beginner, maybe with the Galloway system, you start them like that slowly. And then if they could start handling 2 miles in a row, then I do not, and I always say this, I do not introduce mileage in terms of, okay, I want you to run an extra mile. I go by minutes.
Time,
Yeah, I go times. I would say, okay, Jerry, I want, you did 20 minutes now. Now I want you to go 22 minutes. And then the next cycle, 23 minutes. And the number that I always look for is 30. Once they could sustain 30 consecutive minutes at the same pace, it could be 12-minute miles, it could be 14. Now I know that they're starting to develop a base. And that's when I introduce heart rate. So again, an 18-week program, normally it's what we do, 12 to 18 weeks. So at week 14 already, now we know, okay, so now when you're running, I want you to check your heart rate. Tell me where it is. And I assure you it's going to be, because we also other factors consider. Oh, I want to lose the weight. I want to, so let's say they want to lose weight. So I say, okay, keep your heart rate at 130. Okay, mile 3, it's going to be 130. Mile 4, it's creeping up to the 136, 140. And so what should I say? I said, no, okay, if it's under 1, if you feel controlled, keep it there, 140. Then I add another, okay, 140. And then I said, now look at your watch and look at your cadence. They're going to be, assure you, they're going to be like 160.
Probably, yeah. Definitely 170.
Okay, yeah. So then you introduce that. And that, okay, now you forget about the heart rate, look at your cadence. It's 160. For a couple of weeks, now it's 166, which is around 10 more meters. So 166. Once they hit 170, now I combine both. And then the key is keeping that heart rate under 140.
Yeah.
And that's how I developed that base. And then from there, now you have 5-6 solid weeks. Then you introduce some power. Like, okay, see this little hill? I want you to go 10 seconds at the same cadence. 10 seconds. Normally the watch will read after 15 seconds. So let's say 20 seconds, slowly, just same cadence. They come back, they're huffing and puffing. So we do that once a week for maybe 2-3 weeks. And slowly I build them up. After 30 minutes, then the key number is 45 minutes. By that time, we know that they're handling it quite well. So once you start adding 2 minutes at a time, it really works. For me, it's been working a lot with a lot of beginners that I see, and it gives them a little confidence. They start feeling better, and that's the stage when they start looking at, okay, so what's my next run? Okay, now Monday, it's a recovery day. Let's introduce you to cross training, and then Tuesday, we're going to start adding a little speed. So now instead of doing 400s in a row, I just break it up. I go, okay, you're going to do 200s at the same pace. You're going to walk 200, 200, and you're going to do that 4 times. That's the magic number. And then 5 times, 6 times. Once they could show me that they could do that for 6 times, okay, now we're going to do maybe a 400, 200, 200. Or I'll do 400, 300, 300. And around week 10, 8, 7 is when they start seeing a lot of changes physiologically. The heart rate starts dipping at rest. They're going to start their sleeping cadence. The algorithm sleeping is going to be better. And they will also see very little, but they will also see their body change in terms of weight. They start losing a little weight. If they having issues with weight, so then what I do, this is now on the clinical side, then I do is, okay, this is the amount of calories you need to burn per exercise bout or per running session. So once they tap around 500 calories, I know there's a deficit there.
For sure.
So in clinics, that's what we do. With 500 Some of us, like you, I know it's minimum 800 calories. So, you start them with 500. In weight management, it's around 400. And then, so I add 100 more calories because these are more runners. And we control the weight like that. They start seeing that, and that's when you really, then the last 6 weeks you introduce, so now you introduce tempos, you dip it a little faster, you go a little faster. And the first few times they'll be complaining, but they get it, and that's how you build it. And then the last 6-7 weeks, they're gonna start acting like runners. You're gonna start seeing them dressing up more like runners.
Transformation.
Yeah, like now they have their Oakley, the watch. Oh, should I get the Phoenix or the 260? But honestly, you see this, and as a coach, that's what I like. I like to see that progression. Maybe they won't perform well in that first race, but man, they started and they finished. That was, and second race, they'll sign up and they'll do, hey, let's do it again. That's the way I approach it. It's long process, but that's why I don't like to do 12-week programs, because it's just too short, especially for a beginner. Now, if it's a 5K, then that's different. 12 weeks is sufficient. But most of us like longer stuff, and that's the type of people we attract. So they'll come, hey, I need help. And I go, okay, if you have 18 weeks, this is what we're going to do.
So then, at what point do you feel like somebody who's a beginner runner and wanting to do the marathon, Harry, is there a point at which you're like, this person is ready for the marathon? Is there a point that it happens generally?
Yeah, it happens when if they could show that they could finish 2 halves, I think they're ready. They're ready. Obviously, you add the 10 minutes here and there, and also you have to give them a really good talk to them saying, we're training 18 weeks for a marathon now. That day of the marathon, it could be raining, it could be snowing, like tomorrow. It's going to be too hot, it's going to be too cold. My last Boston, I went in incredible shape. I honestly thought I was a young guy, I was like 50. I remember my last was 56. And I said to myself, man, I could be close to under 3, slightly under 3. And all season long training in the cold, everything was good. Everything was perfect. I was living here already. And I go to Boston. The day before Boston, it was 58 and sunny. Beautiful. I'm like, man, I'm good. I went to the expo. I picked everything. I'm talking to my old BAA buddies. Everything was good. I'm like, man, I feel good. I go home. I get up in the morning. It was 33 degrees and it dipped. And then okay. So when we got to Hopkinton, they started announcing, oh, it's going to rain a little. By the time I hit Framingham, we had 2 inches of snow.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, in the snow. So there goes all the time. I ended up with like a 3:42. It was horrible, sliding, and I'm like, I finished it because I had to, but I enjoyed it. But man, that beer didn't taste the same.
Bitter beer.
That afternoon, I'm like, okay, there's a plan. But a lot of my friends were like that. On the year that, when she won, remember our client? Yeah, yes. The days before, it was horrible. She was nervous because it's so cold. And she had a PR. That day was crazy, and we were so proud of her. But and then I had another client like that the same day. She trained 18 weeks. She was her first marathon. She was doing New York. First marathon, she got in through charity, but I helped her, and she was one of my colleagues. And she was mentally ready, but she was so anxious. And so what I did is, I remember the last long run, I met with her at Central Park, and we didn't start on the west side, which is flat. I took her to the east side, the hill. And mentally, I was prepping her. I said, this is what you're going to get in that bridge. It's not as severe, but it's long. So the last 3 long runs, I started her on the east side. Man. So when she came into New York, she already mentally like, okay, this is the hill. She actually went over that hill a little faster because she was like, oh, I feel good. At the turn, after the hill, I was sitting there and I screamed to her, slow down. She was almost 20 seconds faster. Oh my gosh. So I ran between the people and then I passed her like 4 blocks up, and I slowed down. So she hit the brakes and she ended up First time, she ended up with a 4 hours, 8 minutes.
Wow.
Lady that never ran before. And to this day, she still runs.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So again, that's a good example. You'll have good days and bad days. So that's the beauty of marathoning.
Absolutely.
Short races, we could, 5K, it's easy. It's raining off. 30 minutes, we're done. 15 minutes, 18 minutes, we're done. But yeah.
Harry, now that you're ridiculous masters runner, how has your training differed in the 60s, now that you're in your 60s, versus when you were even your 50s then? Are you doing anything differently? Do you find your body's coping differently? What's it like for you right now?
Training smarter. Not as fast like I used to, but I'm training smarter. I'm spending quite a bit of my days and at least 3/4 of my training in zone 2. And I do my zone 4 or 5. I religiously do my speed work and I religiously do a tempo. Not 20, 30 minutes, 45 minutes like I used to at 6:15s, but now I do intervals. I do 3 to 5 minutes at my 10K pace, my current 10K pace, and slow down 2-3 minutes and repeat it 3 to 5 times. I'm good. And I notice I'm avoiding injuries that way. I added, which I never did, but I added now strength training. In the past, I didn't. In the past, I was just lucky enough to have good speed, and I just went, and the next day, speed, and the next, it's stupidity, it's ignorance. But when I was younger, I was blessed enough to be in a really good running club with BAA, and they had, all year long, they had speed workouts, even in the winter, because we used Harvard and or MIT track indoor. So we were blessed. We had track Tuesdays and Thursdays. We had tempos Fridays, and then we did the course Saturdays and Sundays. It could be 10 degrees, it could be minus. I remember in my days, -5, we were still out there. But that's what happens when you're young and you have good mass. And but the older I was getting, these cold days were really struggling, and I got a couple of injuries. So I learned then it's not so much how fast I could do them, it's how consistent I could be and how to avoid injuries. Yes, I'm training a little smarter. I avoid skipping my quality days. There are the days here and there, like when I'm at work, I leave work late, I get home way too late to middle of the winter to run. I'll skip it, but I try to do my speed work, my tempos, and my long runs. Long runs now, since I'm not running marathons, long runs for me is an hour and a half, hour 45.
So by time.
Yeah, easy, that's it. I don't do mileage. Even for these championships, my long runs, an hour and a half, because I knew I was not going to run longer than a 10K. So for me, I didn't really struggle with those runs because it was short enough that I was not getting injured and long enough that I was getting good physiological response for the 10K. So that's another thing, and we were talking about this before we started, about now the new theory behind coaching is if you have a person who's running 3.5 hours, 4 hour marathon, they don't really need to be spending 3.5 hours, 4 hours running. Now they know, physiologically speaking, that they have the same cardiovascular effect at 2.5, maybe 2:45. Why? I like it because now they're still fresh for the next day to cross train or do a recovery run or just cross train, and then Tuesday the speed. But these guys that are running 3.5 hours, they come cross-train the next day, they start getting sloppy because they're tired. They're not responding as a master runner. So then the next day for speed workout, Tuesday, it's shut. They're shut. So instead of you seeing this beautiful graph of their improvement, you see this dip. And the way we know that is by either RPE and or heart rate. The heart rate's way too high. So those are the things I look at and for the masters runners, and it seems to help that.
So I would say that if I were to recap, sounds like as you and I are getting older, we can still enjoy the competition that we're doing. It might just be changing our intensity a little bit and duration because obviously our tissue is not the same as it was in our 20s and 30s. And by doing so, we can stay in the sport, compete for a long time with minimizing the risk of injury, and also maybe even raising the bar performance over time as we get even older, so that listen, whatever we did in our 50s and 60s to get to that point in our 70s, the things that the habits, the being able to pull back when we need to, good food, making sure that we're getting the rest and recovery that we need can really help us to endure.
Absolutely. And also just look at cadence. If you could sustain your cadence, like my cadence when I was 50, in my 50s, it was around easy runs around 180, 185.
Yeah.
And now my cadence, like my morning run today, I was 185, comfortable, and it's 15 years later. So that's what I'm saying. You couldn't keep improving that. My mechanics running was horrible because I'm a tennis player. I had a racket in my hand, so I crossed my body this way. So that's how I ran until I met Coach Joel, the New Jersey Masters. He talked to me. He goes, "You're fast, but you're all over the place." I'm literally running. I'm in lane 2 doing repeats, and I ended up, I'm not exaggerating, I ended up in lane 4. I had so much imbalance. My left side was bigger than my right side, so I was pushing this way. So I'm pushing. So he worked with me once, and he gave me some ideas, and then I met other coaches. And when we were in Tokyo, one of the coaches, I went out for running, and I was like this. He was hitting me. He goes, "Keep the elbow in, keep the elbow in." And sometimes when I get tired, I get sloppy in the latter part of a run. I catch myself, and that's when I slow. Excuse me, I slow down, and I could keep it here. And but now I'm more conscious of it. But I had a humongous shoulder rotation. I was like a tennis player. I ran like this, elbows out, and then I had this imbalance, and it took me almost a year and a half, 2 years to get it. And I still catch myself once in a while, but it's much better. Yes, with just the older we start getting, we need good quality runs and rest and nutrition. And definitely include a multidisciplinary team. You know, your PT and strength training and all that. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Harry, as far as looking at, again, we talked about lactate threshold, we talked about VO2 max. I know your book talks about heart rate training zones, which might be an easy way for somebody who doesn't have access to these tests. What are some things you talk about heart rate zone training for somebody who's in their 40s and 50s who wants to get better at running?
Well, if you look at the literature, there's so many zones out there. Like in tries, they use 5, 6 zones. In running, we use maybe 4 zones, maybe 5 if you're a pretty fast guy. For beginners, I focus basically ACSM guidelines, zone 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I'll throw in a 5 if they show that they're interested in that. And I explain to them that for endurance training to get into the running mode, stick to zone 2 for a couple. And if you notice that zone 2 is really easy, I let them creep a little into zone 3, but no higher than mid zone 3. But when that happens, then I push another zone. So it's really psychological. It's the same zone. It's just I'm opening another zone that they'll never reach until week 8 or 9. So again, zones are really, they're good to have. It's just a guide. And remember, guides are made to move number, but it gives them a good idea where they're at. Also if they cannot handle a VO2 test, I'll do a submax, and then it's accurate and it gives me a good estimation where their VO2 is, and then based on that, I go, okay, you could handle 150 heart rate. But I noticed that at 154, you're crossing over too soon in 10, 15 minutes. So that crossover point, I push it back. I go, okay, if you crossed over at 150, let's go 140. I dip 10 beats. So that's how I start their training, at 140. That's why that 140, because normally you'll see an average runner starting to cross over around the 140 range. So the crossover, the lactate. So I do lactate, definitely, because I really show them, because that's easy to show them. They said, here's your lactate at 10 minutes, here's your heart rate with that lactate. You peaked at 4.0 millibol, but it's only 10 minutes. I want to get you 15, 20 minutes at that range. So that's when you teach them. It's okay, to do that, this is what you need to do. We'll do it again later on. And then 3-4 weeks, we'll do it again. Same environment. I'll take them to the lab, and they go, oh, I improved. Now I'm 12 minutes. So that for me is incredible. So now I know that's working. And that's how I work with them. And then after that, it's work. It's just getting them to understand their metrics. Yeah, that's what I do.
That's awesome. Harry, thank you so much for wealth of wisdom. I feel like we have to get you on another podcast in the future because there's so much we have to still unpack.
Oh yeah,
in specific.
You know me.
I know.
I love it.
What's the best way for people who want to either get their VO2 max or lactate threshold tested, or if they want to learn more about how they can improve their running performance if they're an older athlete? What's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, there's several ways, and I'm going to take the liberty. They could call me or email me in my private email.
I'll send them up with
Yeah, and or Next Level Physio here, and because just to so everybody understands, we do have a nice friendship, but we also help each other, just to keep that out there. Yeah. But yeah, definitely, if they're from this area, I don't have a personal lab anymore because I sold that years ago, but I work in the Manhattan, but it's a little too much, and I don't get that profit. But we're willing to work here at Next Level.
That'd be amazing.
I'm doing it. I already asked permission. But that's the way. So you could give them all that information. And again, as well as I'm available to talk, if they have any questions or any runner of your runners have any questions, even in North Carolina, they could call. And I know you guys have really good physiologists out there, but I'm willing to help.
I appreciate that, Harry. It's to have someone of your, not only your athletic background, but also just your academic credentialing and experience. It's been a blessing and a treasure for us to be able to work with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And again, I know we're leaving, but I from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate you. I appreciate everything you have done for me the last 15 years when we met in that Paramus run. I went to you. You were working with another group at that time, and I heard of one of my female friends, runner, said, "That's Jerry. That's the guy you need to go." No, because I just finished doing a VO2 on her, and I said, "I will go over there." So I remember introducing myself. But it's been a great friendship. Yeah. We have done many things together, and I know for a fact that the University of Puerto Rico. Yes. Several years ago, we went out there during their NCAA finals. They appreciated everything you did, and
that was an amazing time.
Their message is they want us back.
Which is great.
And I told him not this year because he's moving, or he moved, and next year. And they sent me the information, said we need you this day to this day, same hotel. We were shocked.
It was an amazing time. I never thought it was amazing working with athletes at that high level. Incredible. Oh my gosh. But then seeing
you put your hands in Carolina, who represented and came in 5th in the Olympics.
It's crazy.
And she's the one now, she's an assistant coach.
She is? Get out of here.
And she's still running.
Oh my gosh.
For the South American Games.
Wow.
She leaves next month.
Really?
She told me, she flat out told me, "You guys are coming, I want to see him."
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we were lucky that week. Yeah. It was a great week.
I'm actually working now with Cameron Murray, who's number 4 in the world for indoor 60-meter hurdles. Oh, okay. Yeah, and he's really great kid down in North Carolina. He found us on Google.
So she knows Camacho then.
But probably. But yeah, it's been great working with high-level athletes with you, and just their level of drive and performance and their willingness to do what you ask them to do is the next level.
Amazing. It's amazing. They really send their love, and they really want us to go. But we'll send next year. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, cool.
But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least 1 or 2 helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.